Welcome to a new episode from EduExcel in the series of Education for Nation Building by Lala Lajpat Rai. Education is the foundation of a strong, progressive nation. Reforms in education empowers individuals with the knowledge, skills, and values needed to build thriving societies. Ensuring education is accessible, equitable, and relevant paves the way for economic growth, social justice, and democratic participation. From strengthening early childhood learning and critical thinking to integrating vocational training and promoting scientific temperament, reforms are reshaping how we prepare future citizens. Visionaries like Lala Lajpat Rai laid the groundwork for education that fuels patriotism and holistic development, while current policies aim to leverage technology and innovation. In this episode, we explore how education reforms contribute to nation building and the path forward for creating empowered generation. Reforms in education. Lajpat Rai suggested midday meals for children in the day school for the physically defective and in the schools for the blind, deaf, mentally defective respectively. And in order to provide for the aftercare of the children in all the special schools, the local managers were required to form local aftercare committees under central organizations. These committees could assist in finding work for the children when they left and supervise them afterwards. A school was the center of activities and training for future life. The American educational institutions he found to be the hub of social activities. Here, school buildings were used freely for social functions and public recreations. Even the various states and city councils were seen to take special interest in developing such a use of school and college buildings. The school gymnasiums and playgrounds were open to the public on certain terms and under certain conditions in particular, and by doing that, their use by the school children should not be affected. The halls and other parts of the buildings were also freely lent for lectures, recitations, concerts, dances, and other similar functions. The provision for public recreations was an important duty of the education department, and it was expected to report on the progress of social movement from year to year. Lajpat Rai approvingly quotes Dean Miller to elaborate his views point. Dean Miller said, education is not an end in itself, but is conditioned upon the nature of man and upon his place in the social scheme. It is not an independent and self-sustained entity, but it is conducive to the fulfillment of ulterior aims. School to Lajpat Rai was a nursery for democracy. Lajpat Rai surveyed the educational institutes focusing on their academic teaching, the industrial training, the military drill, the midday parade, the work on the farms, in stables, in ceremony, and in the shops. Having dined in company with the staff in the dining hall below and seeing the student body taking their meals in the hall above, he testified the importance accorded to students in the American scheme and in the actual working of the institute. The features that struck him most were the following: the general neatness of the girls as well as of the boys. Number two, their demeanor and bearing, which was at once respectful and dignified. Number three, the general air of cheerfulness that pervaded the institution throughout in all its departments. Number four, the earnestness that characterized the workers in shops, factories, and farms. Number five, the morning drill. Number six, the midday parade. Number seven, the physique of the inmates. Commenting on their physical health, he wrote that what struck him most about the American students was that he hardly came across any boy or girl who looked pale or sickly. Most of them were in robust health and all appeared to be in normal health. Towards a model of national education. In fine, the broad contours of his educational model were evolved over a considerable part of his life. His incipient educational vision in an embryonic form in the DAV laboratory was crystallized by his study of educational institutions, educational ideals, and educational methods. In the course of his enforced exile in foreign countries, during those spells, he devoted a substantial part of his time and energy to the study of educational questions, but always with a view to adapting them to the needs of India. He felt so that a century and a quarter of the British rule had failed to educate more than 5 or 6% of the people of India, while Japan had been wholly educated within less than 40 years. Also, education that the Indians were receiving was emasculating, denationalizing, and created a gulf between the educated and the non educated classes. It was meant more to enslave them than to free them. They were taught that everything Indian was barbaric and deserved contempt. Having diagnosed the ills of the Indian society, he was at pains to design a framework of national education aiming at fulfillment of the national ideals. Although the genesis of national education synchronized with the birth of the nation states, the idea received constructive thinking and concrete shape after the Second World War, when the dominant aim in education came to be accepted as the development of a sense of loyalty to the nation, and the national education system was expected to reflect the working of national life. By instinct, national education often laid special emphasis on those parts of training which the national character particularly demanded. By instinct, again, such a system shrank from laying stress on points which could evoke or revive bitter dissensions. While heaping all praise on DAV movement in education, he wanted unalloyed patriotism to be the keynote of national education and not denominational loyalty. His program of national education laid emphasis on A. Bridging the gulf between the educated class and the uneducated masses. B. Technical education in arts and industries. C. The teaching of Indian languages. D. A national discipline. E. The economic needs of the country as a whole. F. National consolidation and national independence. For enunciating the term national education, Lajpat Rai got the cue from three pronouncements, one by Mrs. Annie Besant, the other by Mr. B.G. Tilak, and third by Rash Bihari Ghosh. Of these, the one by Mrs. Besant, expounded exclusively in Indian context, appealed to him as fairly complete and comprehensive. National education, as Mrs. Besant uh, defined, was that must be controlled by Indians, shaped by Indians, carried on by Indians. It must hold Indian ideals of devotion, wisdom, and morality, and must be permeated by the Indian religious spirit rather than fed on the letter of the creeds. B. Must live in an atmosphere of proud and glorious patriotism, and in this atmosphere must be kept sweet, fresh, and bracing by the study of Indian literature, Indian history, Indian triumphs in science, in art, in politics, in war, in colonization, in manufacturers, in trade, in commerce. C. Must not be separated from the home. The present opposition between home and the school must cease. The teachers in school and college must work in harmony with the teachers in the home, that is, parents. D. Must meet the national temperament at every point and develop the national character of India. India was not to become a lesser or even a greater England, but evolve into a mightier India. British ideals were good for Britain, while India's ideals were good for India. Indian people did not want echoes nor monotones, but a choral melody of nations mirrored the varied qualities of nature and God. Mrs. Annie Besant's rhetoric was the main inspiration behind Lajpat Rai's sharper focus on education. Realizing that education was an instrument of national welfare and on its progress and expansion depended intelligent citizenry. He wanted the color, the shape, and the scent of Indian education to be deeply embedded in its cultural traditions, but he desired that it should at the same time reflect India's hope for the future. In order to create such scheme of education, eclecticism and cross-fertilization of ideas were imperative. He wanted national education to be developed within the framework of national postulates and modern needs and basing its scope and content on the following general principles. Number one, national education was necessary for national safety. Universal popular education must be provided by the state. Any attempt to provide for national education by private agencies and private funds was futile. Number two, duty of a state did not end with elementary education. The economic and industrial efficiency of the nation depended upon technical and industrial education, and that also must be provided by the state. Nor could the state ignore the necessity of higher education. Number three, state should make a provision for the general health and physical well-being of the child as a part of national education. Number four, state should realize its duty to bring up and to educate the children to become prudent citizens. Number five, at no time could private efforts to further education be dispensed with. However, these could be directed towards filling up the gaps. For such a model of education to reflect the ethos of the Indian people, the sense of unity was not only desirable but was essential in the interest of a renaissance nation. Equally important was to have a harmonious texture woven of harmonizing threads for a pluralistic nation like India. It was to be a mosaic representing the synthesis of the best and the finest in the East and the West. Along with the knowledge of their own languages, he wanted every Indian to know compulsorily one European language, have European tools in his hands, and handle easily the latest European mechanical appliances as well as wondrous creations of science and technology. He arranged priority wise India's educational needs as more schools and more teachers, vocational schools including schools for instructions in commerce and foreign languages, technological institutions, continuation schools, and lastly more high schools and more universities. The true education was to raise the nation's intelligence and skill. It was to improve its physique and develop its earning capacity. In laying down the scope, content, and norms for national education, he pointed out that though the state had a pivotal role, private efforts could also be redirected to fill the gaps in national education. He wished that all research work in classical languages, history, philosophy, and logic, in mental and moral sciences, as well as social sciences, might be left to them, whereas the state maintained colleges and universities should mainly concern themselves with scientific education, scientific development, and scientific research with an eye on the moral and material development of the country. His educational range was wide enough to have taken within its purview all the fundamental aspects of education, that is, the concept and aims of education, the curriculum, the methods of teaching, and teacher's role. With education aiming to evolve the whole man, his model encompassed the entire vista of man's life. Education of the whole man and education for complete living were the cornerstones of Lajpat Rai's model curriculum, advocating a realistic curriculum. He wanted to give totality of experience to the young ones so as to help create in them a balanced personality. He was in favor of including only those subjects which met certain social demands. In his model curriculum, the subjects of study to be included beside the 3 R's were the teaching of patriotism, hygiene. Let us move forward with the highest devotion to our nation inspired by Lala Lajpat Rai's call to live and, if needed, sacrifice for its freedom and progress. May we nurture education that builds strong minds and brave hearts, shaping a future where service to the nation is our supreme duty. Until next time, keep the spirit of patriotism and reform alive. The National Education Policy NEP 2020 marks a transformative leap towards building a strong, inclusive, and future ready India through education. By introducing the child centric 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 curricular structure, emphasizing mother tongue instruction, integrating vocational and skill based learning, and fostering critical thinking and creativity, NEP 2020 paves the way for holistic development. Successful implementation will ensure universal access, reduce educational inequities, and prepare learners to thrive in a rapidly changing world. As we embrace these reforms with dedication, we move closer to realizing the vision of an empowered nation where education fuels progress and enlightenment for all. Let us commit to this mission for the betterment of generations to come. I hope you found it insightful and useful. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a like, and share it with your friends. Thanks once again for listening. I thank you all once again. See you next time.